Hello! Today I'm going to be narrating a game commentary on a match I played recently against altcom in the 92nd Raccoon Cup, round 2. Ends up being a pretty interesting match. I'm going first in the draft portion. I start by banning Bishop here. So Bishop is capable of being a fairly obnoxious unit. I don't have a great sense of my opponent. I don't think we've played before. I don't know what their preferences are. I'm planning on either first picking Earl, if it's not banned, which I expect it to be, or Cavalry as a backup. There's also a case to be made to ban something like Scout as a powerful unit when redeploy is in play. So Earl does get banned, so I end up starting with Cavalry. The opponent takes Scout and Royal Guard. From here, the units are fairly flat in power, Crossbowman and Knight being the best of the two, Lancer, Footman, and Ensign all being fairly poor. Ensign a little bit better than Footman and Lancer, though I will admit to having a little bit of a soft spot for Lancer as of late. So I take the two best units here, and unfortunately get stuck with the Footman instead of the preferred Lancer. Not a spectacular opener. You'd really prefer to start with a Cavalry here to make sure you get it down. We make our initial deployments. Not a lot to talk about here, but I recruit Cavalry and cross my fingers and pray that I'm able to move someone off of one of my control points to deploy the Cavalry. Not the best, not the worst. We get to move the Footman off and play the Cavalry, and the Knight will get used to recruit another unit. I don't see a whole lot of reason to go all in with Cavalry here. The opponent has already put two units in position on my left side. If I don't develop this Crossbowman, I think I will get pretty quickly snowed by these two, at least the Scout coming down. So I grab a crossbow here so I can have some action on either side. Here I develop my Cavalry. My opponent moves his Lancer into position to threaten my Cavalry. It's a little bit of an awkward spot. It means that I either need to move my Cavalry here to this control point and keep it away from the action on the left side, or I can move it here next to this control point, which doesn't actually threaten a whole lot at the moment, but a central position will be nice. Develop the Knight here. I'd like to bolster that off. So we've got a very strong left side from the opponent. I've just got this lonely crossbow, so I definitely am going to need to move my Cavalry over in this direction. For now, I'm going to move my Crossbowman up. I am first, so hoping that I'll be able to pull and hit a Scout, or possibly leave the Scout alive because it can get redeployed here on this control point if we leave it alive. Okay, so we've recruited a Royal Guard, moved it up, so this is going to be quite the active unit. It's going to end up on my control point here. I don't do anything about this quickly. Royal Guard is incredibly annoying to get rid of in those spots, especially if your opponent pushes a quick start. So here, I'm going to move over actually to this control point. Not sure what I was thinking here in retrospect. I do need to develop this side of the board. I do need to get out of the line of the Lancer, but it's very possible that a move here would have been proper. Although this Royal Guard moves forward, I move the cavalry, I hit it, my cavalry gets wiped. It's not a great spot. This left side is not looking fantastic, so I maybe just want to focus on the right side here where I have 3 units. Fortunately, opponent definitely has the speed advantage with the scout. I'd say they move up pretty aggressively. Move my cavalry, move my crossbowmen over. But right now, this is a little scary. We've got 4 spots, and then on the right side, we've got 2 uncontrolled points here, and a lancer with an active coin. So it can move over, it can control. If they can get one over to here, I'm in a bit of trouble. I'm going to want to keep the scout on the board if I can. Scout has a way of popping back onto the board and taking a spot. I'm also going to have to push through this redeploy at some point. So very highly mobile scout. I'm very on the back foot here. Just going to bolster off this footman. Alright, so Lancer moves over instead of onto the control point to threaten my crossbowman. Here, I'm just going to bolster. It's possible I should have controlled first and kept the coin in case opponent moves the scout down. Again, I'm torn on whether or not we'd want to kill the scout here. I feel like the opponent may be setting up for me to kill scout and then redeploy here, which would give them 5 control points, and then there's just an open one sitting over here. So I make the move that I possibly should have before, which is moving over towards the active side of the board. I'd like to threaten this Lancer. I can also just park next to the Lancer and take a hit off of the Royal Guard. So here I'll recruit another crossbow. There's a case that that could have been a cavalry as well. But it seems like my crossbow is already in place. It's going to need to be active, and it's also going to need to be able to soak a hit while remaining active. So I'd like some coins. But my bag is perhaps a little big for comfort. I do end up taking out the scout now that it can't be redeployed directly onto an uncontrolled point. Now this is an interesting move. So I've got 3 coins in the bag. There's a 50% chance that I have the coin and can redeploy either my knight or my footman over to this point to block the capture from Royal Guard, which is clearly what the opponent's going for. Have that. I like the idea of moving the knight over as it's currently immune, and it's a decent foil to the Royal Guard, as you typically don't want to bolster your Royal Guard. Perhaps I can whittle it down with my knight. Starting now. Opponent's starting to bolster and get their bag a little bit more under control. It's a fairly large bag, really for both of us here. I'm gonna bolster up my cavalry and start to go a bit aggressive. So Royal Guard moves back to protect that point. I'm going to finally grab control of this location. And I'm going to move up and over to take another hit off of this Royal Guard. So we have exhausted the Royal Guard supply, so it's back to being a normal unit. I think OP is nuts. It's incidental that the crossbow is being threatened. I think this is more getting someone in place so that a scout can be deployed here. So I've got a couple of options with my cavalry. I can take out this Lancer and move to this control point. I can just attack this Royal Guard and leave it off the board, which is otherwise going to start to take down bits of my cavalry. So I'm going to move it away. I like the idea of getting this control point. That gives me 4, and then I have 5, 6, and there's maybe a flippable one here. So we've got a scout in play now with 3 scout chips in bag, so this is going to be capable of doing some damage, especially now that my opponent knows I don't have any cavalry right now, and my bag is going to be 2 non-cavalry chips, and then I'll have 1 chance at drawing a cavalry. So it's likely that I'm not going to be able to do much in the next bag with my cavalry. I'm going to attempt to both threaten this control point and this Royal Guard. I don't see a whole lot of use in moving the Royal Guard over here to take this point. It would allow me just to move up here, swap, and now his Royal Guard is in a less useful position. So I feel pretty good about trying to flip this. Here I'm going to grab my last cavalry. Yeah, they said it's unlikely that I was going to get a cavalry here, and so this cavalry is probably dead. So what do I do here? Well, I've got a very active crossbow with a couple of coins. I've got this knight that I can move up. That's going to threaten this point. Alright, so I've managed to move over. I've got a spare coin. I can soak a hit. I like the position of this crossbow quite a bit. So awkward spot here for the cavalry at the moment. Don't have really anywhere good to place it. I'm going to have to put it back down at the beginning, and it's going to take me a couple moves before I can really get something going with it. Here, I'm going to grab a footman. I'd like to move the footman up, be able to take this point. It's going to be important to start grabbing a few points so that when I'm in position to flip, I can flip this one. That's going to put me at 4. This will put me at 5. Then I need to find a 6th, which can be aggroing down this guard and taking it, or trying to move the footman up and take this, though I don't particularly want to develop the footman much further. So OP takes initiative. I'm going to start out by grabbing this point. I'm not entirely sure what they were hoping for here. but I haven't thought it through particularly far. Here, I've got a couple options. You can see me indecisively clicking. I can move this cavalry. I don't really want to move it here. I'm very interested in moving the footman up, so really move it to just below the scout, kill the scout. I can move it here, and I can kill the royal guard, and then free this up. But I don't have a knight to move straight in, though the opponent does not know that. So I end up just flipping this location. I'm going to want to do that anyway. There's not a whole lot of spots where I'm going to be able to shoot something with the crossbow this turn. So they bolster onto, which currently leaves them at an inactive royal guard. So this is just soaking 2 hits and never doing anything else. I guess there is a sacrifice decree in play that has not been used yet. So keep that in mind. So looks like they did not draw a scout. I get to move up. I'm going to kill this so that I can move my scout onto the point. I believe I was worried that if I move up and kill the scout, it's going to get redeployed, potentially like this lancer moves up and then it redeploys there, and now I have really no way of reaching that. I guess I have another cavalry to move over, but that seemed a little threatening at the time. All right, so Scott moves down. This was an interesting turn. I end up using the sacrifice decree to trade a cavalry for that scout. My thinking was that if I use the sacrifice decree and trade a footman, there's going to be a spot where the cavalry, the lancer, can move forward and finish off my footman. And this is really, I think, a critical point that I need to not protect from flipping, but grab in the first place. So I didn't want to put myself in a spot where that was possible. My plan really was flip here, kill the royal guard, move in, and flip. So here I'm going to take back initiative. Here I miscalculated. I forgot that the opponent could use the reinforced decree to put a royal guard back in the supply and prevent my knight from being able to take the royal guard. What I should have done here, or what I could have done here, is just attacked, cleared it, and let them put scout down. What I was thinking is that I would take initiative, I would have last action, I would be able to kill the royal guard, and then, have a reasonable chance of drawing the knight again, moving back into that spot, which would cement the win. So definitely a miscalculation on my part. So here, I wasn't really sure what to do with this coin, so I ended up just putting a reinforcement back so that I could potentially get this one cavalry active again. So scout comes down, I'm going to play cavalry as a blocker. They fortify, or they bolster. And I move down. My intent here is just to race them for these 2 points. In my next bag, I've got a footman, a knight, and a crossbow. That's going to allow me to take with the footman, kill with the knight, and then move in with the crossbow, or if they move their scout up in defense, kill one of the scouts. And then we've got a position where I got a meat grinder at the last point, and they can't afford not to just redeploy, repeatedly onto that point. They take initiative back, kill the knight. But here I know that they have coin and ensign in hand, which isn't going to do a whole lot for them. Take this point. Actually, in retrospect, I don't know why they did not use redeploy here. They could have redeployed an ensign onto this point. It kept me off of it. I'm not sure what they were saving that for. There, I'm going to grab initiative back. This lets me move the crossbow in. First I have to block with the knight. They've got 2 ensign coins. So now I'll block again with the footman. We'll just talk about the meat grinder. I'm in it temporarily, but what I can do is move down, and now I've got a win. I thought it was a pretty interesting game. I made a few small mistakes, especially as I looked back through. But it was well played by my opponent. I thought I was in real deep trouble early on, but managed to turn it around. Thanks for watching.